Hi everyone, I'm Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Denver, Colorado, and you're watching All Up in Your Business. This episode of All Up in Your Business is going to be all about getting pizzed, or what to do if you're not getting pizzed because you have clients who are not pizzing you. We've all been there, and if you haven't, you most likely will be there. There will come a time when you provide a great service or a great product to one of your clients. You're so happy with the work that you've done. They're so happy. Everything's going fantastically. You give them your final invoice, and then boom, silence. You're suddenly ghosted by this client who has been so responsive and so present the whole time. And then as soon as it comes time to pay the bill, they're gone. It happens. So what are we going to do about it? The first thing to do in this situation is give the client the benefit of the doubt. Assuming this is their first offense, if they're a repeat offender, then don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore. But if this is the first time they've failed to pay something on time, or they failed to pay an invoice, give them the benefit of the doubt. Very possible and very likely that it was just an oversight, unintentional, something got mixed up. So, follow up with your client. Give them a call, shoot them a quick email. Hey, friendly reminder, this invoice is due. You don't want to go in there guns blazing, pissed off, thinking that they're trying to rip you off. Most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, it is just going to be a mistake. And so you don't want to risk losing that relationship or damaging the relationship if it is something that could actually be a good, profitable relationship for you moving forward. So we've given the benefit of the doubt. Maybe another 30, 60 days has gone by, still nothing. Okay, maybe this wasn't just an oversight. Maybe there's a little something else going on behind the scenes. So the second thing to do if your client isn't paying, follow up in writing and in as many forms and mediums as you can. So send another invoice, send it over email, send it over normal mail, USPS, US Postal Service, preferably either certified and or return receipt requested. Sending it via mail and email is a good way to make sure it's getting to your client, because maybe something went wrong with their email and they're not getting it, or maybe something's wrong with their mail and they're not getting it. So we're trying to cover the board and send it to them every way possible so we make sure they've received it. And in those letters, I like to give some kind of time restriction for when that person needs to respond or pay you your money. So I always like to close these letters with something like, if I don't receive full payment within 10 days from the date of this letter, I'm going to pursue my other legal remedies, which is kind of a nice way of saying I'm going to get an attorney involved or I'm going to sue your ass. So that way your client knows this is serious. I'm not effing around with this. Bitch better have my money. Of course, we can send as many letters as we want. That's not always going to do the trick. So what do we do from here? Our next step is to take a step back and think about if it's really worth pursuing this. Because in most instances, the next step is going to be suing the client or getting an attorney involved. So you want to make sure, number one, is it worth putting the money into this to try to collect on this invoice? If it's a $200 invoice, but your attorney is going to be $400, then what's the point? You're spending more on the collection than you would on the invoice. So make sure it's worth it, and also make sure it's worth the possible recourse from the client as well, because your client still may not pay, and the best way to get a negative review on your Google page or your social media is by trying to sue a client. So you also want to make sure, is it worth that potential negative impact if I try to go after this client for what they owe me? And the third thing when you're thinking about this is, can this client even pay? Because if someone doesn't have the money to pay, they're still not going to have the money to pay, even if a court or a judge orders them to pay. So before we do anything else, I like to seriously consider, is it worth the time, money, hassle, and potential negative recourse for going after this? If we've decided that it is worth it, then the next thing to do is either get an attorney involved or a collections agency. If an attorney is involved, they'll typically send out their own demand letter on their letterhead, makes it a little more serious to the client when they receive this letter from an actual attorney. That can oftentimes be all that's needed to light a fire under your client's butt so they pay you. And the same thing will typically happen with a collections agency. If you hire a collections agency, they'll typically take on this collections process. So they'll send a few demand letters on your behalf. And then if that doesn't work, then typically they will sue the client on your behalf as well. And so whether you want to go down that route of having a collection agency do it for you, or if you want to do it yourself or hire an attorney, ultimately, the process is typically going to be the same, but you're going to send some demand letters, and then if that doesn't work, typically your very last and only option is going to be to sue the client. And you can usually do this in small claims court, depending on how much money is owed and the small claims limits in your jurisdiction. But again, even when we do that, sometimes it just doesn't work out. There's just going to be times where you have to accept, I'm not getting paid for this. And so the very absolutely most important thing that you can do when you're in the situation where a client isn't paying is to learn from it. If you don't learn from it, then it's going to be a double loss, because now you've lost this money and you've also lost this opportunity to improve. So learn from this situation and what you can do with your next client to make sure it doesn't happen. And I'll give you a hint. What you can do next time is require payment up front. That always solves the problem when you have them pay up front. That's the tip. But whatever you do, make sure you learn from this situation and make sure you change your process to avoid it from happening again. Because if your clients aren't paying you, then you're not in business. And what are you doing? That's all for this episode. As always, it's best to talk to an attorney in your area so you understand your rights and what your options are in this kind of a situation. If you're in Colorado and would like any assistance with your business, or if you're having trouble getting paid, feel free to contact me. My contact information is in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.